Millions of Americans saw Bing Crosby every day. His words helped them get through war, the Great Depression, and the building of modern America. Every December, people all over the country still listen to his old Christmas songs. You might never see one of America's most famous stars the same way again after hearing that shocking truth. The sweet man who sang White Christmas was hiding a dark truth that would destroy his own family in the end. He lost two sons to suicide. A third person died of cancer. All of them had problems with drugs and lived in the huge shade of their father. So what dark secret could make the kids of one of the most famous stars ever do such terrible things? What did Bing say that his kids would think about for years to come? And why would a family that had fame, money, and what seemed like endless opportunities leave behind such a terrible legacy? Today, we're going to show you one of Hollywood's saddest family stories. Harry Lillis Crosby Jr. was just a boy from Tacoma, Washington, before he became the biggest star in American theater. He was born in 1903 into a simple family. His father was a bookkeeper and his mother ran the home with their 7 kids. His normal start didn't make it seem likely that he would become the voice of a generation. But even normal lives have times when things change. It was a comic strip in the Bingville Bugle that Harry was really interested in as a child. A neighbor gave him the name Bingo, which he later changed to Bing, a simple name that would become famous very quickly. When Bing was young, he got his start in show business as a property boy at Spokane's Playhouse in the summer of 1917. There he saw stars like Al Jolson perform. Meeting these famous people in the entertainment business early on planted the seeds for one of the most amazing careers in American entertainment history. Bing showed potential in many areas while at Gonzaga University. He did well in debate, sports, and public speaking. Before the siren call of music pulled him in a different way, he briefly thought about going to law school. He started performing locally when he teamed up with pianist Al Rinker, but his early image was tainted by not being dependable and liking the wild jazz-age way of life. Even with these rough starts, Crosby's obvious ability was clear. His baritone voice was warm and personal, making everyone feel like he was singing directly to them. This was a new way of singing at a time when most famous singers used a style that was more theatrical and presented. In 1926, Crosby and Rinker caught the attention of Paul Whiteman, the head of a famous band, who asked them to join his group. Soon after, Whiteman added guitarist Harry Barris to the group. Together they became the Rhythm Boys, a singing trio. This work put Crosby on the map across the country. Crosby's jazzy version of Old Man would soon make him more famous than his partners, though. His song of Old Man River became his first #1 hit in 1928. It was a sign that he was going to become a single star. The Rhythm Boys broke up because of rising tensions within the group. This gave Crosby the chance to start what would become one of the most famous solo careers in the history of show business. In the 1930s, Crosby's fame grew very quickly. He was on 10 of the top 50 songs of 1931 alone. In his first movie role, The Big Broadcast, he showed that he was more than just a music artist. Soon after, he became the host of NBC's Kraft Music Hall. He would keep that job for 10 years, bringing his friendly nature into homes across America. What really set Crosby apart was the way he talked, naturally, both in songs and on film. Unlike other artists who over-the-top their acts, Bing seemed like he was really himself. Because he was easy to talk to, he became a model for modern pop singers, including Frank Sinatra, Elvis Presley, and others. You can't say enough about how important Crosby was to American spirit during the World War II. Yank magazine named him the person who had done the most to boost the spirit of service members serving abroad. When he recorded Irving Berlin's White Christmas, it became a holiday song for soldiers who were far from home. Crosby was so immersed in culture by 1948 that it's hard to imagine how someone could live without it today. An American poll put him ahead of war heroes, lawmakers, and even the Pope as the most admired guy in the country. Music Digest said that in that year, his songs made up more than half of all the recorded music played on American radio. Crosby changed more than just the art world. He also changed the way entertainment was made technically. NBC wanted his radio show to be played live, which made him angry. So he pushed for pre-recorded broadcasts, which changed the business in the long run. After World War II, he put money into German tape recording technology and helped fund Ampex, the company that made the first commercial tape recorder in the United States. This new idea made it possible to edit and improve acts, and it completely changed how music and radio shows were made. Musicians like Les Paul saw right away how this new technology could be used to be creative. This led to the development of techniques like multi-tracking and overdubbing that are now standard in recording. At first glance, Bing Crosby seemed to have it all: huge fame, lots of money, new ideas, and the love of millions of people. He showed what a great American guy should be like: smart but friendly, successful but grounded, and skilled but humble. As his career went through the roof, though, a very different story was going on behind closed doors. It was a story that would finally cast a dark shadow over his memory and cause unimaginable tragedy for those closest to him. As Bing's work took off and made him a star, his domestic life seemed to be written in a perfect Hollywood style. He married Dixie Lee in 1930. She was a famous actress and singer with a bright future ahead of her. As his fame grew, though, she slowly faded from view, taking on the part of Mrs. Bing Crosby. Between 1933 and 1938, they had 4 sons: Gary, Philip, and Dennis, who were twins, and Lindsay. For most people, they were America's dream family. Talented, pretty, and lucky in business. Magazine spreads showed them at their huge farm, with the boys wearing similar clothes and Bing and Dixie looking like they were so happy to be parents. Holiday movies showed the family sitting together peacefully around the piano, which added to Bing's image as the ideal family man. What did happen after the cameras stopped? When they turned off the mics, when the famous American singer was just a dad with 4 little boys. Millions of people who let Bing's voice into their homes would have been shocked by what was really going on behind the doors of the Crosby house. In movies like Going My Way, in which he won an Oscar for playing a gentle priest, Bing was seen as the perfect father figure because he was patient, kind, and smart. But his real parenting style couldn't have been more different. Behind the walls of their farm, Bing was in charge, with strict rules and an emotional distance that was almost cruel. There was a big difference between Bing's public and private selves. Reports from later on say that the man who seemed warm on TV and the radio was often cold and distant with his own kids. The voice that calmed the country during the war couldn't comfort his own boys. The family's problems were made worse by Dixie's drinking issues. As her drinking got worse, she wasn't able to protect their kids as well from Bing's strict punishment. Her health and well-being were badly affected by the stress of living in Bing's shade and her own career going downhill. The Crosby boys were sent to military school when they were young. The strict rules there were similar to those they had at home. When they got home, they had to follow strict rules and were punished severely for any mistakes or bad behavior that were seen. Later accounts say that physical punishment was routine. For example, Bing is said to have used a belt on his kids for small offenses like leaving a light on or not finishing a meal. But the mental void may have been worse than the physical punishment. Because of how busy his job was, Bing was often not around, and when he was, he often didn't seem to be able to show love or support. He raised his sons with a strong need for his approval, which came very rarely, if ever. This mental distance wasn't just between him and his family. Even Bing's best business partners said they never really knew him. Bill Harris, who worked with Crosby for many years, once said that even though they had worked together for a long time, Bing was still hard to get to know because he put on a carefully built mask for everyone. The Crosby boys were under a lot of stress. In addition to living in a strict and often harsh home, they also had to deal with their father's fame everywhere they went. There was more to them than just being boys trying to make their way in the world. They were Bing Crosby's sons, and people always compared them to their famous father. Things went badly when Dixie died of ovarian cancer in 1952. She was only 40 years old. When she died, the boys lost what little motherly security they had and were even more directly influenced by their father. The loss was terrible for the whole family, but Bing kept up his tough public persona. After only 1 year, Bing married again, this time to actor Kathryn Grant, who was 30 years younger than him. They had 3 more kids after that, named Harry, Mary Frances, and Nathaniel. Many people say that Bing's parenting style changed a lot with his second family. This was another painful difference for his older kids, who had grown up with such a different father. As Gary, Dennis, Lindsay, and Philip became adults, they all had a hard time finding their own identities without their famous father. All 4 tried in different ways to follow in Bing's entertainment footsteps, but none were as successful. How could they? Not only was their dad successful, he was a culture force, a once-in-a-generation star who changed American entertainment in a big way. The weight of the Crosby name turned out to be both good and bad. It did open up a lot of doors, but it also raised standards that were almost hard to meet. And below the surface, each of the Crosby boys had mental wounds that would show up in more and more troubling ways as they got older. It was set up for a family tragedy that would happen over many years and be slow, painful, and finally deadly. Imagine being born into a family with the most famous singer in the United States' father. You should be able to get through any door. Every chance should be easy to get to. You should be able to take over the world. That father, who was loved by millions, comes back home to criticize your every move, punish your every mistake, and tell you every day that you'll never live up to his great reputation. For Gary Evan Crosby, this was the truth. He was born in 1933 as Bing's first child, and from a very young age he was in the public eye, going on his father's radio show as a singing wonder. Americans loved these duets between a father and son, but what they didn't know was that there was stress and fear behind the performances that seemed so sweet. Gary naturally became interested in entertainment as he got bigger, wanting both his father's and his own approval, fights in a much darker light. In the early 1960s, Bing Crosby told a reporter that he had been too tough on his kids. It was one of the few times he had been truly open and honest. This admission, which was hidden under Bing's normally stern personality, showed that he understood how hard his strict parenting had been on his boys' emotions. There was still time for the family, but it was too late. Years of neglect and mental turmoil had already changed him. In spite of this, Crosby's reputation was still tied to Bing's voice, his famous performances, and his huge impact on American society. But that legacy came with a terrible price that would be felt for many years to come, especially by his kids. The world would always connect Bing Crosby with his soothing music, while his children would be known for how hard it was for them to get out from under their dad's shadow. In the end, the Crosby family story is still a warning tale about the dangers of fame and the terrible effects of not caring for your emotions. Bing's business took off, but his personal life fell apart. He left behind pain and hurts that would never heal, which would follow his children for the rest of their lives. As the years went by, the public's view of Bing Crosby changed forever. He went from being seen as a gentle, fatherly figure who sang to calm a country to a man whose private life was destroyed by dysfunction in his family. Things look even more sad now. This is the most surprising turn in our story. It's this moment that will later give the whole Crosby family disaster a new, heartbreaking look. In 1959, when Bing Crosby was at the height of his fame and power, he did something that stars of his caliber almost never do. He said he had failed very badly in the role that should have meant the most to the man who had been the perfect father figure for all of them. Not in his job, which was going better than ever, but in the role that should have meant the most to him. In an interview, Bing said something shocking about how he raised his children. He told her that he wasn't good at raising his boys. He told them he had let them down by giving them too much work, too much discipline, and too much money, but not enough of what they really needed, his time and care. He also said that he and their mother had done our best, but his words showed that he knew he had failed in the most important way. The things that happened after Bing's statement in 1959 make it even more important. Was it an effort to make peace that was too late? A moment of understanding about his flaws that he couldn't use to make changes that mattered? Or was it just a rare flaw in his public image that showed deeper concerns he rarely admitted to himself? No matter what he meant, Bing's statement is a key part of understanding what happened to the Crosby family. It was him admitting that he had failed at being the perfect American father, which was a big part of his public image. Bing Crosby had a heart attack on October 14, 1977, after playing golf in Spain, which was his favorite hobby. He was 73 years old. People all over the world were saddened by his death, and honors focused on how much he had meant to American society and entertainment. People didn't know that his death would not be the end of the Crosby family story, but the start of a sad new one. This new story would show what the real cost of fame is and what terrible things happen when public image and private reality are too far apart.